Alright guys, welcome to part 2 on the Honda CBR600 swapped Yerf Dog cart here. As you can see, it's a custom made cart with a Honda CBR600 engine in it. A subscriber dropped this thing off last video, and basically he wanted me to get it running and driving so that he could enjoy this thing. Anyway, last video we got all the wiring that's on this thing right now from the bucket over here, transported the wiring to this thing, got everything hooked up, which was a big mess, but we finally got it to work. We got the electric start to work, and then we found out we didn't have spark, so we had to go scavenge for a starter. And this specific bike needed this starter because it's got a special diode in there that converts the 12 voltage down to 9 voltage, and the CDI reads the 9 voltage, and that gives you spark. So we finally got spark. Then we put some fuel in the engine and fired up for a little bit. We didn't want to run it too long because it's still a little bit low in oil, so we got some new oil for today to add to it. But yeah, it was pretty low in oil, and then the carburetors were leaking really bad. So we're gonna be tearing into the carburetors today, seeing if we need a rebuild kit or not. Maybe just the float is stuck or something, who knows. But, we'll be digging into those. And then also last video we saw that the wire right here was cut on this spark plug, and then this boot was kind of janky in there, so I think it was only running on 2 cylinders. I fixed the wire right there, so that's all fixed, and then I got the boot situated in cylinder number 2. So that should all be good to go. So basically what we're going to be doing today is trying to get the pipe fitted up, cleaning out the carburetors, and getting some oil in this thing, getting it to run really good before we start hooking up the controls, which will be the throttle control, the clutch, and the brake. So we can play around with some of the parts over here and try to set all that stuff up. Then obviously we gotta get the back sprocket hooked up with a chain to the front drive sprocket. So lots of work to do before we can ride this thing, so let's get going on it. Alright, we're first going to try to get this radiator hooked up. You can see this is the radiator, and it's got a fan on the back as well, right there. You can see there's an inlet and an outlet. Actually, I think, yeah, that's the inlet outlet for the engine. And another line coming right there. But you can see the lines right here for it. And then another line back here. And I'm trying to see if maybe that other line, I don't know where it is. Oh, it's right there. I see it. The other line for it was right here. So I think what we're gonna do first is take off this seat and then try to get the pipes mounted up to see where we need to put the radiator, because we can't get in the way of the pipes and we can't get in the way of the seat. So I think we're gonna get the seat off. Looks like a couple bolts holding it on, one right there, and then 2 in the back. So let's get that off first and then see what we're dealing with back here. Now that we got the seat off of here, we can kind of try to get the pipe fitted up underneath here. Kind of see where everything goes. I don't know where the radiator must sit. Yeah, over the pipes. So let's see what the pipes look like fitted up here. Let's see if we can do it. First of all, there's some weird bends in here. I don't think that's gonna work. Alright, we got the pipes kind of in here. And that's how it comes out the back. It sits a little low. So what could maybe be a possibility is we get bigger wheels for it. Or at least bigger tires that sit up higher. Because I don't know if you can modify the pipe too much. I mean, you could probably, I don't know. You can't really bend it up too much. But we'll try to work with it. We'll mount it up and see what we're working with. Alright, so that was pretty lucky. We got the pipe to come over the bar like that. It's about an inch over the axle. And that looks a lot better. And it's right up next to the engine there, to the oil pan. So that looks like a pretty good spot for it. I'm happy with that. Nothing gets in the way. And then we've got the silencer or exhaust tip. That probably gets welded on right there. So that looked pretty sweet. But we'll finish bolting this thing up and then we'll try to fit the radiator on there. Alright, we got this pipe off of here. That went right here. Probably gonna put this one on there like that. I don't know if that's going to fit or not. We'll have to try to make that work here. Alright, now let's see if that radiator will mount up in here somehow. So this looks like it's going to go somewhere like that. So it must go this way. Just see here. I just don't want that fan hitting the pipe right there, you can see. Also have to make sure there's enough room for the seat, so let's see how the seat's gonna sit on there. We might have to move the radiator over here. I'm thinking over to this side. Just because I don't think that fan has enough room. Does that fan have to be right there? It looks kind of like it, yeah, because it's plugged in right over there. There's a plug-in right there for the sensor for the fan. So it's either we move the seat up or remove this thing out of the way. I wonder if we could go up here like that. I wonder if that would give enough room for the fan. I just don't want it to hit that pipe. Are these metal? Is that plastic? Feels like metal. But if we come up here and put it more above, I think that would give us enough space. And we can kind of just mount it right to there for now. You can see all the hoses are hooked up on it with clamps. The seat does hit the end of it right here, so we're gonna have to get some longer lines and kind of probably make them longer and then pull the whole thing over to here is what I'm thinking. I think that will give us enough room for the seat. We're going to lower this thing down now and then see if that pipe hits the ground when we lower it. Hopefully it doesn't and it has some clearance, but we won't know until we lower it down. So. Oh yeah, plenty of clearance. Look at that. Sweet. That's awesome. Alright, so that setup worked. Plus, we're gonna have more clearance because that tire's flat right there. So that'll work out great. So we got some of the wires out of the way. We're gonna kind of put it, I think, over here and then mount the battery like right here, I'm thinking. And then we'll have all the controls going up to here. We're obviously gonna have to like rewire some of this, but then the throttle cables will come back over here and then come down there by the foot pedal. And then what else? Like these are all sensors and stuff that we're gonna have to reroute. So we're gonna have to splice them and then make them longer to go back there because they need the sensor. But yeah, let's see what else. Yeah, because that's the on-off switch as well, and the start button right there. So those are really important. Probably gonna have to mount this thing up by the handlebars up there, probably right to that thing, and then the cables we'll have to mount somewhere else, probably down there. But yeah, that's kind of how the setup's gonna be. Then obviously the fuel pump will be like over here somewhere. We still have to get that to work. For some reason that doesn't work. We're not getting power to the green and the blue. So, and then the kickstand, we're just gonna bypass that switch. So we'll probably just cut that wire off right there, connect those two wires, and that will bypass the switch. And then everything's cleaned up in the back. So that's kind of how that's gonna look. And then this will all be cleaned up as well. Probably trim off all these wires, we don't need those. So that can be all cut down to there. Put these all nice and tidy somewhere. And then same with that, wrap those around the frame right there. But yeah, that's kind of how that's gonna look. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but we'll get it looking pretty nice once we rewire everything. But yeah, that's kind of the situation. And then we've got the clutch right here. This is the clutch cable. So I'm guessing this will come up and we'll probably have like a hand clutch. So you just squeeze in with the hand. So we're gonna have to make this cable longer and have it kind of come up around here so that you can just use your hand when you're on there and do that. And then with the shifter, we'll probably have the shifter somewhere like right here if we can reroute that. But we're gonna use this thing for the shifter, I think. So this will be connected to the shifter right in there, and then we'll wrap this around over to here and have like a pedal, a hand pedal right here that you can shift back and forth with. And hopefully that'll be strong enough. I don't know if that's going to be. We'll have to kind of mock that up and see. But right now, let's get some oil and coolant in this thing, and then we'll work on the carburetors. All right, let's add some more oil to this thing. We're still a little bit low. I could see after we started it up. There's a window right there, and that wasn't quite full. There, that's a little better. See how we're doing. All right, we'll continue to add it until the window right there is filled up. All right, we've got enough oil in it. I'm kind of interested to see if this thing's gonna hold coolant. So I guess we'll dump some coolant in there and see what happens. Let's see, all these lines are hooked up. Looks like they're all going into there. Where does that big line go to? Down there, that's hooked up. And we gotta make sure the water pump works too. Still good here. No leaking yet, that's a good sign. No leaking. Let's just check it out for leaks here. Nothing yet. That's good. This thing takes a lot of coolant. A little bit more. Oop. And that's pretty much where we want to be. It looks like it's holding coolant. No leaking yet on this thing. So that's pretty good. We'll see what happens when we start it up, but let's get these carburetors off and take a look at those. I don't like gas leaking down here because that can start a fire, especially with the starter right there. So if anything sparks, we'd be up in flames. So, and it was leaking pretty good. I have every single carburetor. So the clamps are pretty much impossible to get off this thing. So we're gonna have to get the clamps off on the actual manifold here, if I can. All right, let's see if these can come off of here. Yeah, those don't want to come off. Maybe what we can do is just take the float bowls off. That way we don't have to take off the whole carburetor. So we'll start with that one, see if we can get to the screws. Look how clean the float bowl is. That's crazy. How is that leaking? The needle in there looks good. Everything looks pretty decent. You can see the float going up and down, and the needle right there is going up and down. I'm wondering if it doesn't shut off the gas. We're gonna throw some gas down here and then just see if that, when I push up like that, if that shuts off the gas. All right, we're gonna hold the float up, pour some gas down here. It shouldn't be leaking. Looks like it shuts it off. Oh, Yeah. It's shutting off. Okay, are the carburetors not leaking anymore? Doesn't look like the carburetors are leaking. Alright, so apparently the carburetors aren't leaking anymore. So that's good. I don't know how that's possible, but let's see. Maybe it needs a little bit more gravity. They were leaking before really good. Alright, well, it looks like they're not leaking anymore. So that saves me from cleaning 4 carburetors. Alright, here we go. Let's see if she starts up here. Key is on. Something's going on in the carburetor here. That was weird. It's like shooting through the carburetor. I don't know what that was about. Maybe unhook that. Let's see. Huh. Huh. Just stopped running. Alright, let's see if we lost spark here. I don't know why we would, but it's definitely possible. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have spark now. What the heck? Alright, we got spark again. So it turns out the battery wasn't spinning the engine fast enough to make spark, and that's why it wasn't sparking. I tore apart everything again, and that was the reason behind it. So that was fun. Alright, let's see if she starts up now. Shot out a flame from somewhere. Go again. Alright, we've got our gravity fed gas tank hooked up. Let's see what happens now. See if we can get this thing to idle for a while. Idle's a little high, but we're getting closer. It's sounding pretty good. It revs out all the way too. I think all the cylinders are running now though. Man, sounds pretty good. I wonder why the idle's so high. Probably because I wonder if that's adjusted too high right there. Alright, we're gonna let this idle for a bit. See if anything comes on, like the fan. Man, that sounds pretty good. See if we can rev her out here. That is insane. That is sounding amazing. Pretty peppy. Did the fan come on yet? Fan didn't come on yet. Must not be getting too hot yet. Wow, that sounds amazing. Jeez, that is going to fly. So I'm wondering, because the pump isn't working, I wonder if we can use a gravity fed, have the tank up there, and then just have a line going to the carburetors like that. It did rev out all the way, it seemed like, with it on there like that. I don't know how it's going to work if we're actually driving it, but I think for now we're going to focus on having the gas tank up here with a line down to it like that, gravity fed, and then we don't have to deal with the pump and trying to figure out why that doesn't work. Because I tried to chase that thing and look up online, and I can't find any information on why that wouldn't work. Usually if the key doesn't work or the ignition doesn't work, then the pump doesn't work. So technically the pump should work, it just is not working. If anyone has any ideas why that would not be getting 12 volts out of there, let me know. But all the fuses are good, all the connections are good, all the safety things are off, and then the key works and everything else works. So I don't know if something is missing, like a plug for the pump or something like that, which very well could be, because I pretty much pieced together this thing, but I don't know. But I think for now we're just going to use the gravity fed tank and call it good. Alright, we got some more parts for this thing in the mail. It's been a couple days since we last worked on it. We've got this strap right here we're going to use for the gas tank. We're just going to bend this metal around in two different areas and bolt it up here. I think that's the best way to do that. And then we got some metal for the shift rod. We're going to put like the shift rod like right here, have it pivot like that, and then just cut it like up here for like a handle. So that's gonna go like that. And then we got a longer throttle cable for it that can reach down to the pedals down here. And then let's see, what else did we get? Kind of have to modify these to work. So this is kind of gonna go, so these are gonna go like up here like that. And what I'm gonna do is mount them to this rod right here. This is hollow. Put it in there like that, and then weld this to a plate right there, and then we're just gonna bolt it down so you can move them and adjust them if you want to. So we gotta get those installed, and then we gotta figure out a spring mechanism that fits on here, probably right in these holes, so that it puts it forward like that and stops right there. So that's gonna take some modifying. And then we got a bunch of bolts and stuff, and then a harness. And then the owner of this thing wanted a light bar installed. So we also have a light bar, which we'll probably install last. So we've got a couple smaller lights and a bigger light bar for the top of that right there. So let's start installing all that stuff. I don't know how far we're gonna get, but all right, gas tank is all hooked up. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's nice and solid on there. It's bolted to the back of the frame right here. And I'm not going to put too much time into it because I don't know if the gravity fed tank is going to work. So, I don't know, but that's pretty solid. Doesn't move at all, except for the bar right here is moving. So, that is all good to go. Basically all I did was put some spacers in there, you can see, because the frame goes in right there. So put a couple spacers and then just bolted it in. Pretty easy to do. Then we've got the gas line hooked up to it, and it's just gravity fed. So that should hold up, that should secure that in place. Let's work on the throttle pedal now. Let's get all that mocked up and I'll show you guys what I'm gonna do with that. Alright, it's all welded up, ready to go. Here is the throttle pedal. You can see I put a spring right there attached to the bolt, 2 bolts bolting it down. And then this is the thing I welded, the tube. So basically, it just pivots right here. There's a stopper right there. And then the throttle cable will be connected to one of these holes. And that will pull like that. And then the spring returns it. And it's pretty secure on there. So that worked out pretty good. We're going to do the same thing for the brake. But yeah, that's the design I went with. It's the simplest, easiest, and most effective. So let's see if we can get this throttle cable hooked up. This thing's going to go back over to here. And then it's going to wrap around. We'll have to see how we hook this up. Alright, we got the throttle cable hooked up. That's kind of how that looks. It's not perfect, but it is working, as you can see. So this is kind of the setup we've got going. We tied the 2 cables together along here. Obviously we need to clamp it down better, but this is kind of how that works. So throttle cable is pretty much done. Just have to get some more clamps on here. But yeah, and then we just clamp that down right there so it doesn't move. And that's working pretty good. Isn't the prettiest thing in the world, but it's working. So and it's not too sketch. So that's working. Alright, let's try to get the brake pedal fitted up here. So the brake cable is, I think, right back here. So this is the brake right here. Just that brake cable right there. So that's going to be pretty easy. Isn't much for brakes on this. It's basically a drum brake back here. So not much for stopping power. But we're going to tap into that, get a cable going from there to the brake pedal back here. Pretty much going to just copy this design and then the brake will be done. So let's get working on that. Alright, we've been working on this thing for about 4 more hours and we got the back brake hooked up here. Pedal hooked up, back brake is working. So basically just clamped it off, tied the wire to that right there, and now that's working. I have to get a different throttle cable, that's why it's kind of janky right now, but it does work. So and then the throttle still works. And then we made this thing. So this is the clutch hooked up to the shifter lever right here. So it's basically just a hinge right here with a bolt through it. And then we've got the clutch lever hooked up to the clutch back here. This is just a regular clutch lever off of a bike, and I just welded 2 tabs onto this. Put a bolt through it, clamped it down, and it's pretty good actually. What I might do, because this cable is not really working, it works, but not really. So what we might have to do is get rid of this cable right here for the shifting. And I might go with like a straight bar that's coming back up to here. So we might mount it right here. That way, if I have a straight bar coming back to it like that, that's a lot easier. And if I put it like right here, the shifter, that'll go right back to the shifter right there. You get a lot more leverage, and that'll just pull easy, and shifting should be a lot more smooth. But that's kind of the setup we're going with. I know the guy wanted it on this side, but I don't think we can do that. You'd have to reroute everything, and it'd be kind of difficult, and we're kind of on a budget here, so yeah, left-hand shift I think is the way to go. Unless I can somehow like put a bar right here and then pivot it over to here. I don't know how we do that. It'd have to be a pretty strong bar. we might just make a 90-degree bend. I wonder if that would hold up if you shift it. I think it would bend right here though, you know. There's too much leverage on it and it would, I don't think it'd keep it straight. I think this would bend this way and the rod right here would bend out and then bend this in. But I guess we could try it. But yeah, getting closer. We've got the brakes, we've got the throttle now figured out, and then we've got the clutch for sure figured out.